Pikelette, the cottontail bunny, stood in the spare guest room with his travelling bag open on the patchwork quilt on the bed. Usually, preparing his bag was simple, but this morning he wasn't quite sure how to pack. His shirts were folded, socks rolled, pocket watch wrapped carefully in a handkerchief, all ready and waiting, laying on the bed beside his bag. Sunlight glinted on the brass clasp of his travel bag and slid over the bed to warm the rug on the floor. Outside the open window, the garden was already awake. A hen clucked and ruffled her feathers. The leaves of the willow tree whispered their greeting to the blackbirds, who sang in chorus in earnest reply. There was a lily pad flop as a tiny frog plopped into the pond for his morning bath. Pikelette placed one paw on the side of the bag and paused. Downstairs, the cottage made doing-of sounds. Not busy, not quiet either, just awake in its own way. He closed the bag for now and went down to breakfast. Rosco was already in the garden, setting out bowls and plates on the wooden table. The air was cool enough to feel fresh, but the sun was warming the backs of the chairs. "Morning," Rosco said. "Good morning," Pikelette replied. "I was just thinking about packing." Rosco nodded. "That sounds like something that can wait until later." They ate together slowly. Crusty bread from Nash's bakery with golden honey made by Mr. Bramblewick's bees. Apples cut into neat wedges, thick yogurt with juicy sultanas in. Tea in porcelain cups that clinked on their saucers as they were set down. Millie Moonbeam joined them at the table and poured herself some tea. She had her knitting needles and a ball of wool with her, and started knitting as her tea cooled. After breakfast, they wandered down the lane together. Pikelette didn't ask what time they would be back. He simply walked, enjoying the breeze through his whiskers and the scent of hay in the air. As they passed Mrs. Bramblewick's cottage, she leaned out of the window and handed Rosco a small basket lined with straw. "Fresh this morning," Mrs. Bramblewick said. "Still warm." Pikelette lifted one egg carefully. It felt heavier than he expected. It was oat brown, and yes, he could feel the warmth on his paw. He smiled. "You wouldn't find these on a city shelf," he said. "No," Rosco agreed. "They don't like travelling much." Pikelette placed the egg back gently, noticing that most of the eggs were different sizes. Some were brown, while some were white. "Thank you, Mrs. Bramblewick. That's very kind. And I'll bring your basket back later," Rosco said. They went on to Nash's bakery. The window, slightly steamed up as usual, was brimming with all kinds of treats. The door stood open and the smell of bread and pastry drifted out into the street, making bunny noses twitch and whiskers flutter. Nash appeared in a cloud of flour, holding a pie wrapped neatly in paper and tied with string. "For the journey," he said. "Apple and blackberry. It's best eaten when you're not in a hurry. I always say a pie tastes best when it's enjoyed with a good view." Pikelette accepted it with both paws. "That's very kind. I'll do my best. I'll have it on the bus ride home," he promised. Back at the cottage, the afternoon stretched comfortably. Pikelette sat on the low step, gazing out at the meadow beyond the hedge, while Millie Moonbeam worked beside him, her knitting needles clicking softly. "These are for sleeping," she explained. "City nights can nip at your toes." She handed him the finished socks, thick, soft, and faintly scented with lavender. Pikelette held them for a moment. Then he smiled, grateful, his heart feeling fuller. "Those," he said, "will be very welcome on crisp nights and frosty mornings." When it came time to pack, Pikelette returned upstairs. The bag waited where he'd left it. This time he knew where to begin. His folded shirts went in first, along with his folded socks. He patted them down to leave plenty of room. In next went the pie, settled flat so it wouldn't tip. The eggs were wrapped in a cloth and nestled carefully in the corner, surrounded by straw. He placed Millie Moonbeam's socks on top. Downstairs, he left a few things behind that he couldn't pack, even if he wanted to. The mug he'd sipped freshly brewed tea from, the delicate porcelain plate on which he'd had the most delumptious and scrumptious of cakes, the spot in the garden where the light fell just right and bathed his cheeks in the warmth of the early sun. Some things, he'd learned, stayed where they belonged. When Pikelette came back down, the others were waiting. "I've packed," he said. Rosco smiled. "Then you're ready." Pikelette rocked back and forth on his heels. "I was thinking," he said, "perhaps one day you might come and visit me in the city." The bunnies looked up. "There's a little room above the watchmaker's shop," Pikelette continued. "You can hear the clocks ticking at night and the tram bell in the morning. I think you'd find it rather nice." "I think we would," Rosco said. "We'd like that very much." They stood together by the door. Outside, the lane waited. The village carried on. Pikelette lifted his bag. It felt just right. "I have things to remember the cottage by," he said. "Yes," Rosco replied. "You'll enjoy them." Pikelette nodded. He stepped out into the afternoon, then turned back once more. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me take my time." "You're most welcome," Rosco said. The door closed softly behind him. Upstairs the spare room rested. Back in the garden, Millie Moonbeam watered the lettuces. In the kitchen, Floyd started putting the cups and saucers away. Beyond the hedge, the hens pecked and wandered. Rosco stood content, paws resting on his tumblington. And somewhere along the lane, Pikelette walked on, carrying eggs, a pie, warm socks for bedtime, and a little bit of the cottage in his heart, just where it belonged. All was snug. All was well. Night, night.